All right, so in this lecture, we're going to talk about something called subsurface scattering and how to paint it. So subsurface scattering sounds like something really complex and technical, but it's actually not. All it means is when light shines through an object, bounces around inside, and comes out the other end. So a good example of this is when you hold a flashlight up to your hand or your ear, for example, and your ear glows really red and kind of looks like it's glowing as the light comes through. It can happen with a piece of fruit, can happen with leaves. Basically, what's happening is when an object isn't all the way opaque, it's sort of translucent to a degree. When the light hits the object, instead of just bouncing off, some of that light goes through into the object. Once it goes inside, there's mass in there and matter, and so the light is going to bounce around all over the place, and a little bit of that light is going to come out the other end diffused, and the color of whatever object it just went through is also going to be coming out in that light as well. This is a really great effect that you can add to your paintings that make it look a lot more realistic. So let's go ahead and paint it. We're going to use the same image we use for our secondary light source, and we're just going to use a layer underneath it. We already have a layer mask made, so you don't have to worry about that. And we're going to have this layer be set to color dodge. So you don't really need to know exactly what color dodge does yet. We'll go over that later as we go into layers, but this is just how you create this sort of subsurface scattering effect. So you're gonna make sure this layer is set to color dodge. I have it underneath my light layer, but on top of everything else underneath my secondary light layer. And we're gonna come over here. I'm using a soft brush, and it's gonna be amplifying whatever is, whatever the light is shining through by whatever color it is. So for example, let's start with the leaf here. We're going to go with a pretty saturated green, and we're going to maybe a little bit less than that. We're going to start painting in this green where we think light would be coming through on the other side. And we're paying attention to make sure that we leave some areas towards the center of the tines of the leaves of the veins, because that's where it's going to get a lot thicker, and it's going to be harder for light to pass through. So you can see that as we paint this on, it really starts to make it feel like light is shining through this leaf from the other side. And if you paint this on and you feel like it's a little too strong, the great thing about working digitally is you can always just lower the opacity on that layer, or brush away the parts where you think it's too strong. For example, we don't want it to be coming through on his fingers, so we just come back in here with our eraser tool and brush out the areas on the fingers. Okay. Now, I don't think I want this all across the leaf, because I'm imagining his body is on the other side of it. And so that's going to kind of be obscuring some of the parts of the light that might be hitting this. But we can get a little bit more. And then to tone it back a bit, I'm going to go ahead and grab my eraser tool. I'm going to use a nice big soft eraser. I'm just going to knock this back a little bit. It's a little strong. Okay. Now let's do the actual frog. So let's do this fin on his head. I'm imagining that he's, got blood pumping through there. So we're going to use a reddish color. So it definitely has some of that flesh effect. We're going to get back to our brush tool. Bring my brush size down a lot smaller. And you want to make sure that this is coming from, if the light is coming from behind the object, that's when this is going to be happening. But it's not going to be happening when the light is coming from the front. So with that secondary light we created, it kind of feels like the light is coming from behind. And so that really helps this effect to really make it feel like it's lighting up there. Awesome. And once again, I'm leaving a little bit of space there near the spine, so that kind of shows that it's getting thicker. The skin is getting thicker. There's that spine there where light's not going to be able to pass through as easily. All right. Another place this will show up would probably be the ears. So especially the top of this ear that's getting hit by that reflected light. And then this ear as well. And then it will sort of diffuse down into the flesh down here. That's definitely going to warm things up a bit. It can even happen on areas where it's not necessarily coming out the other side, but even coming out sort of just the same area, and just makes the object feel like it's glowing a little bit more. But this is only going to happen in areas that are especially sort of translucent. So, for example, these fingers here, they have the skin there on a frog is very sort of soft and almost see-through. And it's going to make it so that light hits that, bounces around, and tries to come back out. And it's going to be all warmed up from the frog itself, from the skin of the frog, the color of it. So especially in these orange areas. On his toes and his hand. Mostly only the areas that are in light. If it's in shadow, you're not going to see this effect, so that's why I didn't do his thumb there. We might even need to come back with our eraser tool and just tone back that the fingers a bit, because they're really bright now. Yeah, let's do that just real quick. And we still want it, but we're just going to keep it a little bit more subtle. There we go. All right, excellent. Where else would we see this? Well, his arms, maybe those get pretty translucent, especially in this thin area here. Mostly on the edges, because in the middle of that there's a bone, and it also just has more flesh, but towards the edge where that rim light is, it's going to start to get real saturated and lit up there. Same with this side. And maybe even a little bit over here on his thigh and stuff. Might get a little bit down here in the skin on his back. Frog makes a really good example because they have such, almost see-through skin. All right. And there you go. That is how you paint subsurface scattering. Once again, this is something that you can find in all different circumstances, whether it's on people, on your fingers when you hold that up to the light, or leaves and things like that. But there you go. That's the simple way for how I paint it, and I will go ahead and see you guys in the next lecture.